up, people? It's Multiplier here with a Serum video, and genuinely, this is the most requested thing that people ask me to do a video on, and that is creating wavetables in Serum. Now, it's pretty much a dark hole of endless possibilities and things you can do in terms of creating wavetables, but I'm going to run you through the basics. So, first of all, you need to know what a wavetable is and what it does. So, what we need to do is pick an example. So, let's pick something like, I don't know, this one. Oh, look at that. As we move, that's a bad example. Next one along will be better. Sweet, there you go, that'll be fine. So as we move through this wavetable position, we're moving through the wavetable. So each one of these individual wave cycles that you see is called a subtable. And if we click to go into 3D mode, click, then this shows you all the different subtables. So as we move through this wavetable position, each yellow thing in between all the green things is the subtable that we're actually playing. And notice how as we move through it, there's 256 subtables. So that is what makes the whole wavetable, is the combination of subtables. And there's also quite an important, oh, got a message there. Let's do that on getting distracted. Right. So what is a wavetable? We've also got to understand what Serum is doing with this wavetable. So if we go back into 2D, let's say this is the subtable that's selected. If we play a particular note, let's say it's that one or whatever, it doesn't matter what note, that note will have a hertz or a frequency. And let's think about what a frequency is in hertz. So hertz is physics for per second. So if you play a note that is 1,000 hertz, then it'll play that cycle 1,000 times a second. That's basically what's happening. So if you play the note that corresponds to 1,000 hertz, then it would play through this cycle, this subtable, this thing here 1,000 times. So when you think of it that way, then that's how you generate all these other harmonics, because the fundamental note, which would be a simple sine wave, let's say it's 40 hertz. If you press the 40 hertz note, play it through 40 times a second. But if you have all these other harmonics in there, then that's what generates all that other stuff. Kind of makes sense. I'll give you an example by actually making a wavetable. So if we want to actually make a wavetable, we need to hit this little button here, this little pencil. And let's reset this entire thing. So we'll go over to add remove, initialize all, and then this is the wavetable editor. Very, very quickly, single is the things that process a single subtable. Process is something to process the entire wavetable, so the combination of subtables. And then morph is, I'll show you that in a sec. So first of all, we have simple sine wave. Let's do, that's not a sine wave, that's a saw. Duh. Right, so let's make it a simple sine. So we'll hit these little arrows down to 1. And then what we can do is grab this sine, click, and bingo, bango, bongo, we have a sine wave. Now, to demonstrate what I meant about, so this note is, let's look up what frequency it is in the spectrum analyzer. It is roughly 300 hertz. It's not exactly 300, but let's round it up to 300 hertz. So it's playing back this subtable 300 times a second. Now, if we then do 2 for the y-axis and then instead do, oh, click the wrong button. Oh, I did 0. I didn't mean 0, I meant 2. There you go. So if we now do this, it's playing the next one up. I'm still pressing the same note on the Ableton push, but we're basically now playing this whole thing through 300 times a second. But because we have 2 sine waves, what's happening is we're effectively playing a single sine wave 600 times a second. And that's essentially, I press the same note, this one. That's how all these other harmonics are generated. So when you have a more complicated waveform, let's say it looks a bit more nuts and mental like this, I don't know, then what that is a combination of sine waves using maths and physics and stuff, which generates all your harmonics. So if you look in the spectrum analyzer, you'll see all the different harmonics relating to that. Anyway, that's lots of theory. Let's get back into the actual nuts and bolts of how to make a wavetable in Serum. So let's reset it all over again. So add and remove, initialize all. So let's give you, in fact, let's give you a cool example, not a basic one. So we'll reduce the grid divisions down to 0, which is a cool trick. And now we can literally just draw in whatever little shape we want. Let's pretend that looks like a cow. And then if we want another wavetable, or not a wavetable, got to use our words correctly. So that's subtable 1. If we now want another subtable in our wavetable, we hit the little plus. And then we will draw in something else. Let's draw in a frog, like that. And then, yeah, let's just have these simple two. So we have at the moment two subtables. If we hop out of the wavetable editor and hop into 3D mode, we see as we move through the wavetable position, it's simply jumping between the two. It hasn't got all those middle bits. So how do we generate all those middle subtables in the wavetable? That is what the morph is for. So back into the editor. So if we now hit morph, we have a few different options. Crossfade is the simplest. Spectral is a bit different. It's quite hard to explain the difference between them. And then it's even harder to explain all the differences between these other ones. Let's choose crossfade as an example. It's the simplest. And what that's done now is, in fact, if I undo, you need to keep your eyes on here. So 1, 2, so we have two subtables. If we morph it with crossfade, it now says 1 and 256 because we've generated 256 subtables, or the entire wave table. So if we now hop out of the editor and move through the wavetable position, we can see all the intermediary things between the two. And that is what morph does. And the way in which Serum generates all those middle subtables is determined by the morph settings. So I'll leave that to you to experiment with, but that's basically what morph is doing. It's the algorithm used to generate all the middle points. So if we reset it one time again, so let's do add or remove, initialize all. Let's have a simple square. Oh, let's change the grid division to something more useful, like 2. So simple square, and let's generate another subtable, and then let's make that saw, and another subtable, and let's make that some sort of weird doubly signy thing. And then what we can do, we can literally generate as many subtables as we want, and then when we hit morph, it will combine the whole lot. So now if we hit morph, notice at the moment it says 1, 2, 3. Always got to keep your eyes down here to see what the current state of the wavetable is. We hit morph, let's choose spectral this time just for fun. And now it says 1, 125, and 256. So as we hop out, we can see now as we move through the wavetable position, it's moving through for everything. And that is pretty much how a wavetable works. All these options along here, you come across them when you need them. So, I mean, a lot of them are pretty self-explanatory. So everything in this single tab, for example, just affects that particular subtable. So if we're in this subtable here and then we hit single and then say, I don't know, flip vertical, i.e. inverting the phase, just flips it, for example. And you can pretty much figure them out. Most of them are pretty obvious once you read them and use a bit of thinking in your brain. So process, yeah, you can kind of figure it all out. But yeah, that's pretty much how you make a wavetable. It definitely takes quite a bit of time to get an intuition for what sort of wavetables work. So definitely got to experiment and keep moving through the wavetable. That's how the coolest sounds are typically made. And then you also got to do a bit of thinking. So like what we did when we did two signs like this, we thought, right, what does that actually mean in terms of like thinking of what's actually happening to the sound? That can always help, but you can just do it random. If you want to be like, initialize all, just crank up the grid divisions to, I don't know, 7. Why not? And then you just want to be mental and just do that, and then do another one and be like, that's fine too. You can do all these things and then maybe morph it with this one, 0 fundamental phase. And then now it's morphed between them, but it's actually changed the subtables a bit because of the way it's zeroing the fundamental phase. And now, ooh, look, it's going through it. So you can just experiment. And there you go. That is how to generate or create wavetables in Serum. I haven't covered importing wavetables because that's complicated and a whole separate topic of discussion that I haven't figured out. So there you go. I've been Multiplier. Hope you enjoyed.